Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Marche, the webinar director here at Advice Chaser. Before we introduce our guests and get started, I do need to do a bit of legal housekeeping. Advice Chaser, the host of this webinar, is not a registered investment advisor. We cannot and do not give financial advice. Today's presentation is for educational purposes only and cannot be considered advice for any person's individual situation. Advice Chaser regularly hosts informative webinars such as this one, featuring a variety of knowledgeable professionals, many of whom are licensed advisors. Any opinions, ideas, jokes, or principles expressed by our presenters are their own, however true, funny, or interesting, and are not endorsed by Advice Chaser. Please do not act on the information you hear today without consulting a qualified financial professional. We're so thrilled to bring you this educational presentation today. Attendees are muted, but we want to go ahead and encourage you to ask questions using the chat box, and the presenter will answer those queries during or after the webinar as appropriate. If you ask a question in the chat box and we don't have a chance to get to it, go ahead and leave your number as well, and we will reach out to you after today's event. We want this experience to be as educational as possible, so please don't hesitate to ask for clarification or expansion of the material. I'd love to introduce you to today's moderator. Lars Larson is the president of Heritage Financial North and holds the Chartered Financial Consultant designation. As a financial planner, an investment advisor, and a fiduciary, Lars provides objective advice working solely for his clients. Since 2003, Lars's approach to planning comes from a holistic perspective, which includes wealth management, retirement and tax planning, portfolio management, as well as Social Security planning. Outside of the office, Lars enjoys hiking with the family, running, and has spent many years practicing Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, where he holds a black belt. Lars, why don't you go ahead and come off of mute and say hello? Say a few words.
Super cool. Thanks for having me on today. This is a topic that is dear to my heart, even though it's a little bit out of the typical financial realm conversation that I normally have. I was born and raised in Denmark, which is a highly taxed country, but also with a very strong social safety net. So over there, education is free, for one thing. But interestingly enough, my mom was a teacher, and I know firsthand that even though there was a strong social safety net, teachers were still not paid very well over there. However, maybe a little bit better pension in some cases. But when I came to the United States many years ago to the beaches of Southern California, I didn't really care much about those social safety features because, you know, what could go wrong in America, right? And then as I grew up a little bit and started having new questions and concerns and worries, some of them became things like, well, heck, will I ever be able to retire? And that's sort of how I got into the financial world, because I was looking for answers. And so when I heard we were going to talk about teachers today, or two teachers in self-care, I was really excited about joining. I have a lot of clients who are teachers. I have a lot of friends who are teachers. And what you guys do for our children, we were just talking earlier about having children in the school system, and you guys are the lifeline. I mean, what you guys do for our future generation, right? I mean, nurturing their minds and being there and putting up with all the stuff outside of the schoolroom that you have to, right? So you can take care of our wonderful children and get them through life. And with that, obviously, self-care is an extremely important part of that. I'll detour for a second. It's not the topic today, but financial self-care is an important issue as well, because I've noticed, and I think that goes for any profession, right? If we have financial stress in our lives, it kind of impacts everything else that's going on. And what can be hard in the teaching profession, knowing that you guys didn't start teaching because of the financial side of it, right? You did it because of your passion, for sure. Sometimes the financial stress can be unfair. And so I believe everybody deserves a retirement and a lifestyle that is fitting their needs and dreams. And having a financial plan, quite frankly, can help you get there. And I say this with lots of respect. Sometimes, unfortunately, in the teaching world, I find sometimes some of the teachers I meet have been sold stuff when they went to the trusted advisor at the school, someone that came from the outside saying, here's somebody. So if you feel you're being sold by someone in the financial world, listen to your gut. I think as teachers, you have a great intuition, and maybe you should get a second opinion. I always, wherever you're at in the country, there's going to be great financial advisors out there. Look for someone who's a fiduciary, who's not a salesperson, that can give you objective advice just for whatever it's worth. And if you have someone in your corner that's looking out for you, the finances, if you have a good financial plan, should not be one of your worries. So you can think about all the more important stuff, the day-to-day stuff in life. So that's sort of all I had to say about that. So
Thank you, Lars.
you're welcome. And I'm excited about today's topic. So I'll
I'd love to introduce our presenter. We have a great presenter today. Debbie Elder is the nation's leader in motivating students to be peak performers. Her varied background includes running a disciplinary unit at the Calgary Youth Offender Center, as a therapeutic foster parent, a homeschooler, a college planner, and after-school program director. She currently owns the Shady Oaks Primary School. She loves to share her incredible knowledge in simple steps that can be implemented immediately. She has experience speaking to students, teachers, corporate America, entrepreneurs, and people who want to be successful at life. This is a great pleasure for us at Advice Chaser. And I'm going to go ahead and stop my share here, Debbie, and turn the time over to you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your kind words, Lars. I'm just going to pull up my screen. Let me grab that for you. And we will get started. So I'm excited to meet everyone. Hopefully we'll get a chance to connect at some point. Self-care is really important, because if we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have anything to pour into others. And so when I do this live, I have two pitchers. One is filled with water and one is empty. And I take the one that's filled with water and I start to pour it into the empty pitcher. And I say things like this. So we get up in the morning, we feed our family breakfast, we take care of them, we get the kids off to school, we ourselves take off to school, we get home, we do the laundry, we pick up the kids, we take them to their events, we cook them dinner, we put them in bed, we send them good night with lots of stories and hugs and kisses, and we're done. And at the end of the day, our bucket is empty. Our pitcher is no longer full. What are you doing to fill up your pitcher, to make sure you can pour into others when you arrive back at school the next day? And I think it's really important to look at it from that perspective. I'm very visual in how I think and how I learn. And that really helps me to remember to fill up myself so I can, as I mentioned, pour into others. I think that's really important. So as teachers, and I've spoken to thousands of you, we're not very good students. I'm just saying, I'm just being honest. So I want you to know today that you're responsible for your learning, to ask any questions, because that really tells me that you're engaged and you're paying attention. And as teachers, you know how important that is. It's good to get feedback from your students. And today, that's who you are for me. So I know you're going to be great audience and great students. So without further ado, let's get started. So we're going to talk first about the pursuit of happiness, which is really important, right? There's a formula for happiness that I'm going to share with you in just a minute. But the first thing I want you to understand is the difference between your wants and your needs. So I really want to drive to school every day in a red Corvette, you know, with the top down and my hair blowing in the breeze. I think that would be awesome. But what I need is a vehicle to get me to and from school. And that's the difference between our wants and our needs. And whether you're happy or not depends on what you're doing and thinking. And I think that's a really good discerning point. As I mentioned, I teach right now, elementary school students between 1st and 5th grade. And we talk a lot about not allowing our circumstances to dictate how we feel about our day or what's going on. And we spend a lot of time working with them on their growth mindset. You know, just because I can't do it doesn't mean I can't do it. I just can't do it yet. And I think as adults, we kind of get busy and we forget that. And I think wanting us to know that, you know, our self-esteem doesn't come from what others say about us. It comes from what we do successfully. And that doesn't matter what age you are. So happiness is very important. As promised, I have a formula for you, like a recipe. And I know that we love to share our favorite recipes with each other. And this is hands down my favorite recipe. So we have basic physical needs, right? We need water, we need shelter, we need food. But did you realize we also have basic psychological needs? That's right. And they need to be met each and every day. These are not something you can put off. They're super important. And there's only 4 of them. So they're really easy to make sure you insert them into your day. So we're going to go through these, and then I'm going to give you, well, I'm a teacher. I got to give you a little bit of homework. So be ready for that. So the first one is love. And it's not romantic love, although that is always enjoyable, but it's really that sense of belonging, that knowing others care for you, that there's friendship, that you are involved. You can meet this need perhaps with your family, maybe with your coworkers, maybe you volunteer at your church, somewhere where, for me, I always think about it, if I wasn't there, would they miss me? If so, you can meet your need for love under those circumstances. The next is power. And when I teach this to my students, they think of power as power over someone else. And that's not what I'm talking about here. This is power that comes from being very competent, having skills. Maybe you're the best programmer in your office. Maybe you're the best garbage taker-outer in your household. Maybe you're the best teacher on your staff. What are you good at? What fills you up with a sense that, yes, I have skills in this area, therefore I deserve to be recognized? What are those things for you? Next is fun. And I got to tell you guys, as we get older, we're not very good at this. Children are exceptionally good at having fun on a regular basis. We get kind of busy and get tied up. And what I've noticed is when you think about serious things, you attract serious issues to deal with. So today I want to encourage you to really have some fun. And that doesn't mean you have to go, we were just talking about going to Europe. That's always enjoyable and lots of fun. But the fun could be found in listening to maybe a comedy station on the way to work, or blasting your favorite music as you drive and singing along, or watching a movie with a friend, or taking your dog for a walk. You've got to determine what's fun for you. So many people only know what they don't want. And I want to encourage you today to be starting to think about what it is you do want so you can put more of that into your world. And lastly is freedom. And freedom is the opportunity to choose how you're going to meet your needs without interrupting somebody else from meeting theirs. And that's really important to do. So just to recap, love, power, fun, and freedom, you need all 4 every day. So what does that look like if you don't meet one of these needs? So imagine you're lying in bed at night and you're like, okay, I met my need for love with my family. It was kind of a rough day. I don't know that I met my need for power today. Everything I tried didn't work. I had a little fun with the kids and I had freedom. I got to go have a massage, but I didn't feel like I hit the mark with the power. Here's the great news. Our reticular activative system in our brains doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not real. So you can lie in bed at night and you can reenact, close your eyes and think about something that you do really well and fill that need just by visualization. And we have many, many studies that have proven this. Many have been done on the basketball court. One team practices on the court, the other just visualizes. They get together, they have a free throw, and they scored equally well. So we know the power of visualization. We know the power of setting our sights on what we want. So this is a great way to ensure that you meet these needs every day. And now I promise the homework, and here it comes. So
can I jump in before you get to the homework, just so I don't leave a couple of questions behind? So the first question is, how do you know if one of these basic needs are missing from your life? And I think you covered that a little bit, but.
Yeah, you'll know, because what I'm going to have you do, and that is a great question, thank you. You're going to you're going to put down on a piece of paper those 4 categories. So love, power, fun, freedom. And then you're going to write for me everything you do to fill that need. And I'm going to warn you, I've been teaching this for about 30 years to thousands of people. You're going to come across one of those areas. You're like, dang, I don't have any to put in that area, or I have very few things. And there's the homework. Now you've got to go find some things or remember things you used to do that met those needs for you and start to input them into your life. You deserve it. You deserve to be fun. And I got to tell you, when I come to school in the morning, I feel like the mama bear, both to my staff and to my students. And if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So a lot of what I do before I arrive at school is get my head turned on right? And I mentioned that to one of my first graders, and he looked at me and he said, what do you mean you like, I said, oh no, my head's still attached. I just need to get my mindset correct before I come in the morning so that I can make sure I'm the uplifter for everyone that's here. And I think that's a responsibility that we all should share in. And the way to do that effectively is to ensure that your needs are met. Any other questions at this point, Lars, that you want to
Yeah, there's a couple more that are rolling in already. So the next one says, what are the symptoms of not meeting these needs?
Oh, so that's a great question. Feeling unhappy, feeling depressed, feeling like, why bother? Nothing I do makes any difference. So that brings another point. When we look at the reasons why children misbehave, did you know there's only 4? Just like the 4, I think that's kind of an interesting combination there. But children only misbehave for 4 reasons: attention, power, revenge, or feelings of inadequacy. When you get to feelings of inadequacy, you'll know it because it's like, why bother? No matter what I do, it doesn't work. And that's a great indicator that your basic needs are not being met. When you start to feel like I'm out of control, nothing I do makes any difference, I'm going to give you this tool to recapture your meaning and your purpose and your passions by taking the time to really evaluate and reflect daily on what's working for you and what's not, and be willing to make the changes that you need to make. And sometimes working with someone to help you through that is a great way to do it. I'm big on, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, accountability partners. You know, people, you can't do this all by yourself. You need to bring others in and surround yourself with those that have skill sets that can be really a great addition to what the skill sets that you have. And then you also can help others. So next question.
All right, great. One more. Do different types of people need more in one category, say love, than others?
No,
Or another category?
no, the balance is the key. What you're looking for is a balance of these 4. Just like a balanced diet, right? Making sure you get enough sleep, all of this. Life is balanced. Can you have a couple of sweets and maybe a glass of wine? Absolutely. But you don't want to get that out of balance. So it's the same with our needs. Great audience questions. I'm very impressed. This is great. Let's move on. Next thing we're going to talk about is self-talk. And that's that little voice in your head that's sort of talking to you about your whole world. Like right now you're going, man, this is the best decision I've made in so long to put time into watching this. I am so glad I'm at this webinar, right? That's what you're saying. That's what our self-talk is. It allows us to make sense of our world. And it's really important. But what's really important is that we give it these 4 questions to make sure it's actually serving us. Sometimes we tell ourselves things that are not true, and that can cause us problems down the line. We need to ask ourselves, does it serve my best interest? Does it advance and protect my health? Does it get me what I want? And if your self-talk is out of whack, if it's not protecting you, if it's not being your best friend, we need to work on that to make sure we can tweak it so that it starts to be someone who can really advance you. I run a summer program here, and we have a book series that we write every summer called What Every Cool Kid Deserves to Know. And one year, the students and I wrote the book about your inner coach, which speaks directly to this and making sure that they are your cheerleader on your shoulder. At our school, we use what's called the nurtured heart approach. And if you can imagine a line of behavior, and when a student or your spouse or your employee stays above the line, if we're really honest, we actually don't say much to them because they're doing what's expected, right? And the minute they step below the line, man, we are on them. That forehead that has that vein that pops out gets going, and maybe our voice gets shrill, or we get a little flushed in the face. So when you're a student or a child, if that's the way you get attention, if that's the way you get recognition, that can be problematic. So with the nurtured heart approach that we use at the school is we take that and we turn it upside down, and we recognize the greatness in our students all the time. So imagine having someone on your shoulder that's telling you all day all the great things that you're doing. Can you imagine how the self-talk would change, how your ability to really perform as a top peak performer would increase? And so we're going to talk about some ways to do that for yourself. And I hope, teachers, you'll take this back to your classroom, because so much of the self-help that's on the market right now shouldn't be there. We should just learn it right from the beginning, right? I remember when I was raising my daughters, and I'm going to date myself here, but my thought was, I want to give them a tape for their heads, like of affirmations of things that they can remember, because I'm not going to be with them every day forever. They need to have this feeling of self-confidence and have that self-talk that really supports them as they move forward throughout whatever they choose to do in their lives. So it's just something to be aware of. Is what I'm telling myself true? And then we have such great intuition, as Lars was mentioning earlier. We really need to learn to trust that. So when I'm talking to my students about how to do that, I encourage them to keep a journal. And if your gut tells you something, write it down and then verify. And the more you verify, the more you realize, I really do know what I'm talking about. I really can tune into my inner wisdom that I have, which is so supportive of me. And one of the ways to use that is to listen to your body. It's like a body barometer. So as soon as I found out my mother-in-law was coming to move in with me, I broke out in hives. Actually, I love my mother-in-law, but it's when things like that happen, when you hear news and in your gut, you feel like you just got like the air sucked out of you, or you just got kicked in the stomach. Something's going on. So that's a big warning sign that you need to listen to that and ask yourself, what's going on here? Are my needs being met? If not, how can I shift circumstances based on what I know I need to get what I want without interrupting somebody else from getting what they need? And that's really the key factor here that we want to remember, is you can go out and have anything you want. And I tell my students that all the time. You just need to be mindful of what other people also need. Now, I know you all know love language.
I'm gonna throw one in there before you
Yes,
get on, because you're doing so good, but others will leave it behind. There's one question saying, how do you practice better self-talk? Like a posted on your mirror or something?
That's one way to do it. I spend my time every morning when I'm getting ready to come to work, listening to inspirational podcasts or YouTube videos. I love Simon Sinek. He's got great stuff. I'm happy to share with any of the audience members afterwards a list of different people that I listen to and follow. Anything by Napoleon Hill, although he's been gone for many years, but the man was brilliant. There's so many things that we can do. And if I go back to that empty pitcher, by filling myself up in the morning, it really allows me to sustain that positive self-talk throughout the day. And it's being aware of it. I think a lot of times we're unaware of that until somebody like this conversation today brings it forward again. And we're like, oh yeah, I need to be mindful of that. And mindfulness is a big buzzword right now, but being present and being aware of what you're thinking really allows you to make changes that you want to make. And here's what's great is I'm going to give you guys some great morning routines that you can use and actually implement the minute you finish watching this, so that you will have some actual exercises that you can use. So again, another great question. I love this audience. This is fantastic. So love languages were written by Gary Chapman, and he has them now I think he's got love languages for your dogs. He's got them for your teens, for your kids, for your marriage. And he's like really expanded. So it's great. When I use this, when I taught preschool, because I wanted to really connect with my students. And when you teach preschool, you don't have a lot of time with them. And so really getting to the heart of how we would connect was important to me. I know myself as a little girl, if you gave me a sticker on my paper, it meant absolutely nothing to me. I knew it was your way of telling me I did a good job, but really it didn't have any warm and fuzzy effect on me at all. Why? Because I'm words of affirmation. I just want you to tell me how wonderful I am. I don't need any stickers. Quality time is spending time with someone. So in a classroom situation, someone who's quality time, who comes in and actually sits with you and wants to talk with you, that student really responds to quality time. Someone who receives gifts, well, I'll tell you, when I was in teaching 4-year-olds, I had a little boy come in and bring me a half-used bottle of perfume. And that was his gift to me. And I did return it to his mom. But I knew that that was his love language. We often speak our language to others, and that's how you can tell. Next is acts of service. That's the student who wants to maybe erase the board for you, or pass out snack, or pass out papers. And then physical touch is the one who wants to give you a hug when they come in, or a high five. How I use this in my classrooms to build connection was to be very careful of knowing who was which language and then talking to them in their language. Love languages allow us to heighten our ability to communicate, which that's life, right? Is the ability to communicate back and forth, to validate, to listen. And if you're unsure, what I did with a couple of my students that were a little difficult to discern is I would just give them a week of affirmations, see if anything stuck. Nope, didn't work. All right, let's try some quality time. Nope, they're running away from me. Get away from me, Mrs. Alder. Maybe I give them some stickers, and then maybe I find what it is that they want, and then I kept track. And that really allowed heightened connection. We do it with our teachers here on campus. We all know each other's love language, and we speak to them in their language, and we try to be really mindful of that so that we can heighten our ability to connect. We've also done it with some of our parents. Some parents, it's very evident what their love language is. Others, you have to be a little bit more of a detective to find it out, but it's worth putting the time and effort in.
Okay,
So
one more question on that, just before you go, Debbie. It says, can you self-advocate for the kind of love language you need?
Absolutely. Once you have the knowledge, you need to let people know. So my husband, this is a great story. My husband used to do things like he'd empty the dishwasher. But Deb, I emptied the dishwasher. I'm like, okay. Hey, Deb, I just power washed the backyard. Hey, Deb, I just mowed the lawn. I'm like, all right. Then I read Gary's book and I'm like, oh, if I tag to the end of that because I love you, I realized he's an act of service guy. So I, the smart woman that I am, got up the very next morning and made his lunch. Here you go, honey. And I provided service back to him. So, and then I had to teach him what my love language is because it's very different than his. And he doesn't read the same books I do. So I said, hey, I am words of affirmation. You need to affirm how awesome I am as often as possible. And so once you know what they are and share them and talk about them. So the work for each of us as individuals is determine our own. And then to ask those around us to go through, and it's online, it's a very easy test to take, and it'll spit out what your love language is, and then you can go from there. And I often get asked, can I have more than one? And the answer is no, you get one. You might have others you like, but you truly have one that resonates with you. Don't be greedy for people. We're going to talk about acting happier. So think about being the person that you want to be, and how would you handle that situation? It's like being your own coach, right? Looking at, okay, that particular interaction with that other parent or maybe with the student didn't really go the way I wanted. So many of us go on to the next thing. I want to ask you all to just stop and go, okay, how could I have handled that differently? What could I do better next time? And then making a commitment to make those changes. You will be so much happier and you feel so much more in control. I think a lot of our discontentment comes from feeling like we have no ability to change anything. And I want to tell you that's not true. Invest in yourself with time, with courses, with reflection, and you will be happier. You will take the time to do what you need to do without, again, stopping others from meeting their needs. And that's really a key factor here. So here's another piece of that is you need to teach others how to treat you. And so many of my younger students that I worked with, whether they were in a bullying situation or felt overwhelmed, and I see it also in a lot of teachers, because if you understand this, teachers tend to be S's, which are, you guys are just awesome. You're like team players and you give and give and give to others, and you're always taking care of everyone else. And you sometimes, not you guys on this call, but other people sometimes don't set clear boundaries. And you end up saying yes, yes, yes. And now it's Sunday night and you're baking those brownies for the school tomorrow and you're so resentful, right? So learning to set very clear boundaries, but that requires you to really do your work and determine what are your boundaries. Again, getting back to so many of us only know what we don't want. And unfortunately, it's usually after we've said yes to something we would do. So if you will set a really high price on yourself, everyone else will respect that, but it's really hard to raise that price once you've already set it. So you are worth it. It's just like that L'Oreal commercial, right? You're worth it. And so you want to make sure that you walk and talk and have an air about you that states that. Be proud of who you are and stand in a way that others respect and admire what you bring to the table, because you have a lot of knowledge to share and you have a lot of goodness to give. So circle of influence.
I got one more before you go. I'm sorry that you
no,
just
this
got
is awesome. I love
too
it.
many good questions. So sorry to keep jumping at you. So how do you set effective boundaries or margins without hurting people's feelings?
That's a great question. If you'll hang on, 2 more slides. I think it's 2 more slides. We're going to talk about that in detail. So great question. We're going to hop in a circle of influence and then we'll slide into that. So if you look at this circle I have here, it's like a target. In the center are the people that are very, very important to you. Maybe it's your family, a very few close friends. As that circle expands, those people should have less influence on you. So the example I give my students when I'm talking to them is, let's say you're at the mall and you're strutting your best stuff and you're looking good. And somebody walks by who you don't know and says, really, you wore that out today? So you got to go, well, you're way on the outside. I don't even know who you are of my circle of influence. Therefore, the first thing that pops into my head is you obviously have no sense of style because I look hot, right? Now, you don't want to put any energy into affecting their decision of you because who cares? As you get closer to the center of the circle, that's where you put your time into resolving conflict for a win-win resolution as opposed to a compromise or a lose-lose or a win-lose. So the closer you get is the more time you spend. The other side of this is being very aware of who you associate with and how that can affect your reputation and what other people think of you. So in a professional world, you want to make sure that you're very protective of who you associate with, whether it be on your campus or outside of school hours, because that can come back and either harm or hurt you. You know, they say you are the sum value of the 5 people that you hang out with. So pick them carefully and just know that that affects who you're with. I learn a lot from the people that I'm with. And I remember in my early 40s kind of taking, I don't know, kind of a reading of where I was at, who am I hanging with? Do they still serve? Do we have the same needs? Or is it time to maybe let some of these relationships go? And you don't have to break up with anybody. You just have to slowly move on in other directions. But I encourage you, don't get comfortable. You know, reassess. Are the people that I'm with, do we still believe in the same things? Are we still leaving our relationships when we end them feeling happy about each other? Or is it time maybe to have a conversation or just let things be bygones, right? So just know that you're not locked into anything. And if you'll continue to reevaluate, you can make really good decisions for yourself. So remember to you get a signal, you think, and then you act. Don't get the last two mixed up. Sometimes we act before we think, and that, well, we know that just causes us a lot of problems. So just a quick reminder before we move into the next section of this presentation, to really, once you get that feeling, that signal, think about what you want to do. What would the Debbie I want to be? How would she handle this situation moving forward? And then act under those guidelines. So
you got one more.
Yep.
So there's so many responsibilities set on teachers. It feels like I can't say no when it's connected to my job. What are your suggestions for handling the workload when I feel it's overwhelming?
Well, I think that for me, as a sort of a head of school supervisor, is really a lot of it comes to communication with my teachers. So for example, I have a brand new teacher. When I'm saying brand new, like right out of college, and they, by the way, are my favorite because they haven't been damaged by anyone else. They get to come to me fresh, and I get to allow them to grow in to be the teacher that I need on my campus. We do things very differently here. And what I loved about her is she had no ego. She could come to me and ask for anything. And that allowed me to ensure that I didn't overburden her. You know, in learning, as we know with our students, there's a fine line. If it's too easy, we're like, why bother? If it's too hard, we give up. And that line moves, right? As you learn something, you need to have that shift happen. And it's the same with our staff, and making sure as a teacher that your supervisor is aware of what's going on with you. If you're experiencing issues in the home that are preventing you from being as effective, your supervisor deserves to know that so they can either help you pick up the slack, or they can provide you with some assistance either through HR or some of the other resources that they have on campus. I think it's really important that you maintain a really good relationship with them. I know when I was working as a labor relations coordinator at the jail, my job was to liaison between staff, union, and upper management. And I was always shocked. Now, I was like 24 years old then, but I remember distinctly having a conversation with an employee who was very upset that their supervisor didn't indicate on their review that they were doing correspondence courses in the evening to advance their knowledge. And I listened, and I finally turned to him and I said, "Did you tell your supervisor you were taking this course?" He's like, "Oh, no, I didn't. I'm like, come on, guys, you got to help them out. So I think it's important that you are very open with what you believe to be your capacity and to ask for help. I think a lot of us in this day and age are hesitant to ask for help, that somehow that diminishes our abilities. Oh, heck no, anything but. When my staff ask me for help, it tells me that they're very aware and that they also honor that I can be someone who can help them alleviate whatever that desire is or whatever those sort of burdens are for them. So ask for help, know your limits, and we're going to talk about margins in just a minute. Roadblocks to happiness. One of the biggest one is mindful living. I know here in Houston, we have a major thoroughfare that goes through town. And I know I've driven home and got into my driveway and gone, gosh, I don't really remember the route home. Like you just kind of on autopilot, right? Or you put the milk in the cupboard and the cereal in the refrigerator, you're thinking about other things. And this is such a difficult situation. There's been, if you guys remember back to 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, it was found out after those disasters, it was because the individuals who were working those plants were numbed by the automation and just doing the same thing over and over again, that those disasters were allowed to take place. The same thing happened with the Korean Airlines 007. When they got into Russian territory and got shut down, everyone on the plane was killed. Well, the pilots had it on autopilot. They had kind of let it go. And I think we are all guilty of going into autopilot. And that is a huge roadblock to happiness when you're not aware of what's happening. To really, this sounds so trite, but to smell the roses and enjoy that cup of coffee out in the backyard and listen to the birds. We somehow think we don't deserve that or that we're too busy. And the exact opposite is true. So here's the margins. So these are really important. When I was growing up in Canada, we had a sheet of paper and there was a red line up the side and a red line across the top. And then there was space. And we were not allowed, oh my gosh, to write in the margins. That was for the teacher to give us feedback or to give us our grade. That, oh my, never were we allowed to write in the margins. And I think without margins, we become overstimulated and we get overwhelmed with the demands on us. And what I've seen in society is those margins are continually being pushed. And it's because we're not setting clear boundaries and we're not keeping a buffer zone. I know in our work, we keep a buffer zone. I always, if I'm teaching, I have backup curriculum just in case it goes faster than I think, or maybe I'm trying a new lesson and it's a disaster. I have to have something to come in there right behind it. I don't know that we're that thoughtful in our own lives. And so I really encourage you to stake out your margins and then make those non-negotiables. It's okay to have non-negotiables. It's okay to say, I'm not moving this. This is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is where I am. And once you've set those non-negotiables, you can move freely, around the plane or wherever you're welcome to have that understanding. When I was raising my daughters, I had very few non-negotiables. Everything else was negotiable. I wanted them to come to me and share with me their opinions because I wanted them to be critical thinkers. If I made all the decisions, well, how were they going to be able to make decisions when they got out into the real world? It's the same with this. I want you to take the time to make decisions about, like my friends know, do not call me after 9 p.m. I get up at 4:30 every morning and I'm in bed by 9. And okay, yes, I get teased at parties a lot, but it's just the truth. And so they know, but that's a margin I have set and enforced. And now they honor it. So it's good. As long as I don't mind being teased, it's all good. Laughter is really important. This often releases the same chemicals that we get when we go shopping or when we do other than dopamine and all of these great feelings. And what we are so valued to have is, as school teachers, we get to be with children. And that is awesome. I don't know if you guys know this or not. The average 4-year-old laughs 400 times a day. The average adult, 4 times a day. So we are so blessed to be with children who laugh and to help us laugh. They're so good for us. They decrease cortisol. Cortisol is your stress chemical, and you can see it. It kind of puts fat on right around your middle. And so that's not something any of us want. When we laugh, all of these, and I know you all can read, I'm not going to read these to you, but all of these physical things happen. So if it's listening to, as I mentioned, a podcast that has a lot of comedy into it, maybe those are the kind of movies. Maybe you have a really funny friend. Maybe you like to go out to improv. All of these things are good for you. So surround yourself with things that make you laugh and that make you happy. To foster a happier life, there's some things that we can talk about. Liking yourself, which comes from that positive self-talk we talked about earlier, being optimistic. And being optimistic is something that doesn't just happen. Years and years ago, I was at a teachers conference as a participant, and we were sitting around having lunch, and we had left one of the sessions. And I turned to my fellow teachers. This is when I was teaching preschool, and I said, "Hey, what do you guys do to be happy?" They're like, "What?" I said, "Well, what do you do every day to make sure you're happy?" And they looked at me like I had six heads. I'm like, "You guys don't like work on that?" Like, to me, that's so important. I take steps every day to make sure, because we are, as humans, we are programmed in our DNA for that saber-toothed tiger to come around the next corner. Now we know he's not coming, but our DNA is still the same. And so we've got to work hard, because we go negative. We go to scarcity. We go to the what ifs. And you need to work diligently to stay optimistic. So my challenge for you is to ensure that you're doing that on a daily basis. Stay active, stay in control. You stay in control by setting boundaries, by knowing what it is you want and being willing to put yourself first. It's okay. You're allowed to do that. When I talk to my students, we talk about, they're young, so they get their feelings hurt and they think other people are doing things to them. Oh my gosh, they think other people are doing things to them all the time. What I explain to them is, nobody does anything to you. They do things for themselves. And that is so true in life. So when somebody is doing something for themselves that bristles up against you and doesn't feel right, your job is to clarify with them. And that is a mantra at our school is, did you clarify? Don't jump to assumptions. Don't jump to conclusions. Ask the person, did you mean to hit my arm when you walked by? Did you mean to not show up? Ask them before you jump to conclusions and get angry, and then there's conflict. And I think learning that skill at a young age is so valuable. And we've really seen it really affect our relationships on campus. And we spend our first 2 weeks of school teaching absolutely no academics. They're not allowed to. My teachers are not allowed to teach academics. They simply set expectations for the year and what we expect from our students, so that the rest of the year, I'm not going to say we have no behavior issues, but we have a whole lot less, since we've dedicated this time to setting expectations, whether that is in relationships, whether it's with your family, with your spouse, with your job. You've got to set expectations. Another way is to volunteer, because when you give, right, when you volunteer, you meet that need for love, resolve any inner conflict you have, and practice idle conversation when you're standing in line at the grocery store. Now that we're back and can able to do that without our masks on, talk to the person next to you, and it just feels good, and you deserve to feel good. So freedom, which is really important here in America, is the only freedom which deserves the name, is of pursuing your own good in our own way, so long as do not attempt to deprive others of theirs or impede their efforts to obtain it. John Stuart Mills has been around forever. This is not a new concept. This is not new wave. This is what our forefathers wanted for us here in this land. So I encourage you to exercise your freedom. So
okay,
here's
I got
the
one more for you before you jump on.
Yes.
So question about margins. Any suggestions on how to manage margin without being too stiff? Sometimes things change so fast that I also see significance of being adaptive.
I do too. And I think what it comes down to, so I don't have a lot of rules at my school. It's kind of funny. We here govern on principles. So it's a very different, principles allow you to be adaptive, right? It's kind of getting to your why. Why do you get up every day and do what you do? Why are you a teacher? Well, it's to ensure my children learn. Okay. What if one child doesn't learn the way the others do? Is it okay to teach them a different way? Absolutely. You can adapt to that. It doesn't have to be solid. Please don't hear, because I'm anything but strict. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying you've got to know your whys. You've got to understand the reason why I'm so clear on going to bed at 9 o'clock is because I've learned over the years that I feel so much better at 4:30 when that alarm goes off than if I stay up past 9. And so that to me is a non-negotiable. And it really serves me. And when I explain to other people why I don't stay up past 9, they're like, Oh, you're so disciplined. I'm glad that works for you. So once people understand your why, but if you haven't put the time in to figure out what your why is, it's hard to explain your choices for margins. I hope that helps a little bit. We're going to talk about some daily actions that you can take. Okay, so I'm going to give you a lot of daily actions. If you did all of these, you'd never make it to the classroom. So what I want you to do is have variety, because that is a spice of life. And I know for myself, I'll do some of these and then I'll stop for a while and I'll implement other ones, but I'm always doing a couple, always. So let's talk about what these look like. So scripting is a tool that I started using many years ago when I trained teachers. I used to fly into a different city every Friday, and then I would get up the next morning and I would train anywhere from 800 to 1,500 teachers, typically in behavior management, classroom management, but some other things. So when I arrived at the hotel, no matter what was going on in the conference room or the meeting room that I was going to be speaking in, I would go in and see the room. And I would look at it and I would ask the attendant, so where's my stage going to be? And where are the people going to be set up? And then I would go back up to my hotel room and I would close my eyes and I would see smiling, happy audience members who were so attentive, sitting on the edge of their seat, laughing, enjoying it, buying lots of product for me at the back of the room, everything I wanted. And I got crystal clear. And then I wrote my script. So you tell your story the way you want it to be. You script your day. I already know you guys are loving this because I already wrote about it in my journal this morning. That's how this works. I get really clear on what I want, and then I'm able to manifest it so much easier. So, and I can send you this also, because I know it's hard to catch all these notes right now. But so it was on the 18th of June, 2021, that the beautiful, timeless, filled with vitality and prosperous Debbie Elder and then go through what your day is going to look like. Because once I finish this webinar, I have a whole host of really fun things that I'm doing as I'm setting up my classroom. So next year, we're getting ready for our next culinary camp that will start on Monday. And I've already scripted out exactly what I want. So this allows me to have clear parameters. It allows me to have a sense of accomplishment. It allows me to set daily goals. And it allows me to clearly intend the results that I want. When you start this process, go general. Don't try to get too specific in the beginning. The idea is not to be disappointed, but to just get really clear on what you want. And again, as I mentioned earlier, that reticular activative system in your brain, if you didn't have that working for you, it's like a filter. All of these thoughts would come in and be overwhelming. You feel like your head was going to blow up, right? So a couple of years ago, I bought a new car. I'm not really a vehicle person. You know, like I said, I like that Corvette, but I could care. It's just about getting to and from. I'm not really a car gal. So I get this new car. I'd never even heard of it before. It's some model of a Lincoln. It's lovely. I'm driving around and all of a sudden I see them everywhere on the road. I never even noticed them before. That's that reticular activated system is now aware of a Lincoln that is whatever letters and numbers my car is. And now I see them everywhere. So what you put into your brain, what you tell your brain you want through your scripting process now allows you to see the opportunities so you can make it happen. It's very powerful. I want you to try this one. Next is a wish list. And this is also a very powerful tool. And I use it before I teach goal setting to my students. So here's how it works. Imagine Aladdin has walked in, he sets his lamp down, you rub the lamp, out comes the genie. And she says, oh, Debbie, no. You don't get just 3 wishes. You get 101. The caveat is you have to write them down. So you write down your wishes, and I will tell you from experience, the first 30 to 35 are really easy unless it's January and you've just had a great Christmas, because typically they tend to be very materialistic. But once you get through those material things that you want, it's like, what do you want? Where do you want to travel to? What do you want your relationships to be like? How do you want to show up every day in the world? Who do you want to be with? It's all of those pieces start to form. And I, having done this now for 25, 26 years, can sit in my backyard and do it poolside in under an hour. But if you're starting this for the first time, be gentle with yourself and have grace. It will take some time. Once you complete your list, I want you to put it away for 2 weeks. Just let it be, let it marinate. And then I want you to pull it back up and I want you to go through it. And here's my guarantee to you. When you go through your list, you will find you have manifested 10 items in 2 weeks. It works every single time. And if it doesn't work for you, you need to let me know because you will be the first. Again, this is how your reticular activated system works. You just got to be clear on what you want. And once you're clear on it, you can have anything that you need, anything. It's all right there for you. You just got to decide what it is. So this is a great tool. What you will notice when you do this is categories will show up in your wish list. And that leads us to really looking at goals. Before we do that, we're going to talk about gratitude. Without gratitude and appreciation, you cannot attract anything else. If you walk around all day thinking and talking about what's not working in your life, you're just attracting more of that. It's like if I get up in the morning and I want to listen to the country radio station, I can't put it on the news station. There ain't going to be no country music there, right? You got to tune your dial to the vibration where you want to be. One of the fastest ways to do that is to keep a gratitude journal. It's really easy. You just write down 5 things at the end of each day that you're grateful for, and don't cheat. You can't write the same 5 every day. You got to be looking for the next 5 things. So imagine wherever you are, it doesn't matter. I want you to look around the room you're seated in right now, and I want you to find all the things in the room that are green. Go. I'm going to give you a few seconds. Find all the green things. Awesome. Close your eyes, no peeking. I don't think you know I can see you, but I can. Close your eyes. Good. Now I want you to visualize all the things in the room that are blue. You're like, oh, Dad, that's not fair. You said green, right? Because what we focus on gets bigger and brighter, and everything else kind of fades into the background. It just kind of muted. So when you focus on gratitude, you get more of what you want. We use this in our school, and you're welcome to do the same. We end each day with a compliment circle. Culture is really important to me. And so the school culture needs to be safe and loving and family-like and warm, because that's an environment for learning. So at the end of each day, each student sits in a circle and they have to give a compliment to the student next to them. But they don't know who they're going to be sitting next to, and they don't know which way the circle is going to go. So they must find something complimentary that they can recognize a fellow student, all of the students in their class. Because sometimes I'll walk into the classroom because I kind of like to play with them a little bit, and I'll make them all move in the circle, right? And I'll put them next to people that don't really know that. Yeah, I'm bad. But here's what they say. So they might say, Lars, today I noticed that you were so interested in learning more about how to help our local teachers. And what that tells me about you is that you truly care not only about your clients, but especially about helping the financial needs of teachers. And that is something that I think is really important. That's very different than I like your hair today. You know, it's really something that lands, and that combination of words really recognizes something that is irrefutable. And that's the key to giving a good compliment. It's not your opinion. It's irrefutable evidence that lands on the recipient. And so that's a great way to end your day. And as a business owner, I want to put those kids into their parents' car feeling really good about themselves, right? How was your day, honey? Oh, fantastic. You know what Johnny said to me today? So it works. Everyone's happy. It works really well. Let's talk about daily affirmations. This is a great way to keep that self-talk, your inner coach, online. So I know there's lots of affirmations you can download from the internet, and those are a great place to start if you're new. But the most powerful affirmations are the ones that you write for yourself, because then they have meaning. And you have to be careful. I don't know how many of you have seen that Saturday Night Live show where the guy is telling himself in the mirror how wonderful he is.
Smalley.
Yes.
Yes.
And you don't believe it. You got to be careful with those. You got to set your affirmations when you're writing them in the present, because if you say, I am going to be, you keep putting it off, right? The two most important words in the English language are I am, because whatever follows that is. You want to keep your affirmations upbeat, short, and very applicable to you. And they need to land. If you say, I am a millionaire, and you can barely make your rent, it's going to have the opposite effect. I am working towards increasing my financial value. There you go. That can land. I can work towards that, right? So just work on your wording to be something that you believe, but pushes you in the right direction. Setting SMART goals. So as I mentioned—
Quick question for you before you jump on that one. Just
absolutely.
So this one kind of goes for the last and the previous. It says, can a gratitude journal be in a different format, like a note app on my phone or a vision board or a conversation with a loved one?
Absolutely. I like journaling, but not everybody does. I think the point is that you've tasked yourself to look for great things every day. Vision boards, in my opinion, serve a different purpose. They are to highlight your goals so you can see them every day. And I have vision boards, my husband is very clear on my visions because they're all over the house in strategic places. But yes, so having a visual about what it is you want to attain is a great way to remind yourself and to keep you on track so you don't get distracted, because life is distracting. And I know for me, the hardest person to manage in the whole world, Debbie Elder. She's very tough to manage. So I have to kind of reel her in and set some really clear parameters. And the way I do that is with goals, with vision boards, gratitudes, and affirmations. So when you do your vision board, it's like a precursor to what you want to set your goals for. It's a great way to gain clarity about what you want. And so, as I mentioned, certain categories will emerge out of those 101 things that you've written down. And then you can look at those and go, it looks like I really want to travel. I've brought it up several times. Here's places I want to go. Let's make a goal to travel in 18 months to that location. So when you set a goal, the difference between the wish and the goal is that a SMART goal is meet these 5 requirements. It's specific, measurable, action-orientated, relevant, realistic, and time-specific. If not, it's a dream. Dreams are great, but if you want to get action and you want to get something to happen, you've got to set a very specific goal. Prayer and meditation is a great way to get centered. It's a great way to just quiet your mind and allow that inner wisdom to come forth. And so I want to wrap it up here in case there's any other questions. I know we're at 12:57. We're just coming in under the line here. So,
and it might be a different time for other people because of time zones as well. Just
exactly.
FYI, yeah. Go. I know, okay. Lars, that you had some questions come in, and we probably won't be able to get to all of them, and that's okay. We can go a little over if that's all right, Debbie.
Sure.
I'll grab it. Yeah, there's a whole bunch, but I'll see if we can at least get a couple more in before we're up on time. So one here says, I love your ideas and I'm so impressed with how you implement these life strategies in the classroom with your students. Do you have any follow-up or written materials that we could access?
I do. And if you want to reach out to me, my contact information is here. I'm happy to share those with you. And every time I speak, somebody says to me, hey, is your school like in our area? I'm like, nope, there's just one. But this year, I have worked on how to do school the way we do school at Shady Oak, and that will be available as early as September 1st. And everything from how we implement all these strategies in the classroom will be available. And I'm happy to share any of those with you prior to that kickoff date. So get in while you can, reach out to me, and I will let you know how we work. I'm happy to do a complimentary 30-minute conversation so you can get sort of some time with me to really get organized on the things that you want to start implementing so that we can set up a plan to make those happen.
I think we have enough time to ask a couple more questions here.
Perfect. Okay. And this was a great final questions. But anyways, let's squeeze a couple more in. Can you do scripting about things you are struggling to do, like setting up boundaries?
Absolutely. And really to see yourself telling maybe it's your boss, maybe it's your spouse, you know what, moving forward, that's not something I'm going to be able to do anymore, and leaving it at that. You know, it reminds me of when people get complimented. And the other reason we do that compliment circle is because it's really easy to give a compliment, but a lot of people can't receive a compliment. And I wanted my students to be able to receive with graciousness the compliment. And one of the things that I hear, and I hear it more with ladies than I do with men, but somebody will say, oh, I just love that dress you have on. You're like, oh, this old thing, I got it at Walmart. No, just say thank you. And it's the same when you're setting boundaries. You don't have to explain to anyone. You just have to be clear and state it with authority that this is what I'm doing moving forward. And when you're clear on your why, like we talked about, you will state that with confidence. When you're not clear on your why, if you're like, well, I think it would be nice, or maybe, or I saw somebody else do that, you're going to crumble under the pressure. But when you stand firm in your why and you're clear, nobody will move you. And it feels really empowering.
Great stuff. Okay, I'll do one more. When you commented on your circle of influence, you mentioned the importance of expending your energy responsibly. Can you expand on that concept, please?
Yeah, so like I explained to my students, somebody who's outside of your circle of influence, somebody who you have no personal relationship with, does not deserve you getting all upset and bent out of shape and hurt, brush it off. Who cares what they think? Like I said, they obviously have no fashion sense because you're looking hot, right? So I think and it's hard for students to learn that initially, that everybody's opinion doesn't have to register with them. The people who they value, yes, their opinion registers with them, and they need to be willing to work out stuff. Like I said, to go to that, to get a win-win solution takes a lot more work than getting simply a compromise. A compromise really doesn't make either party happy. You're just kind of like, it's not really what I wanted, it'll do. But when you go to the win-win, you're really listening, you're really digging deep, like, why do you want that? And you're realizing, I tell a story to my students, I'll share with you real quick. It's a great one for teachers to use. So my girlfriend and I used to go to Florida. We lived in Canada, and Florida was where you went for spring break. So we get down there. I, to this day, still love oranges. There's orange trees everywhere. On the flight down, we're talking about it. We're so excited. We had forgotten that there had been a hard freeze that year. So we get there, and we get up the next morning. She's still sleeping. I go outside. There's one orange in the tree. I'm like, dang. I pull the orange. I come inside, and a couple of things go through my mind, if I'm going to be really honest. First one is, I'll just eat it. She's sleeping. She'll never know. That's a win for me, lose for her. Or I can say, you know what? It's her parents' condo. I'm going to leave the orange for her. That's the polite thing to do. Win for her, lose for me. Or we can decide we're going to cut it in half and compromise. I get half of what I want. I really wanted the whole orange. Or what we did, though, is we had a conversation when she woke up. And I said, hey, what do you want the orange for? She goes, well, Debbie, I know how much you love my orange muffins. And I was going to use the zest from the peel to make you muffins this morning. And I was like, oh, you're such a good friend. I know how much you like orange juice. And I was going to juice the orange for you. So we're like, oh, well, there's a win-win. I got the inside, she got the outside, and we made our muffins and our orange juice. And then I wait and I look at the kids and I go, do you think that's a true story? They're like, nah. I said, well, good, because it's not. But it really demonstrates win-win versus compromise or win-lose. And I think that's something that we really need to keep in mind. So when you're looking at your circle of influence, you're looking at who you're taking others' opinions to matter with you, you got to decide where your energy goes. I watch my students play on the playground, and they'll be playing a game at recess, maybe some kickball, and their team loses. Oh my gosh, you think they had just lost the gold medal at the Olympics. And I'm like, that's too much energy into something that when you go back out at lunchtime, it's not even going to matter. You guys start a new game with new people. They're like, yeah, you're right, Mrs. Elder. But until you point it out to them and tell them, draw that. I love that you're competitive and I love that you want to win, but you got to put it in perspective. So just some things that we talk about here.
Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and take over the screen here just a second. Debbie and Lars, thank you so much for being part of this webinar presentation today. We want to thank the organizations that have made that possible. Thank you to our attendees for coming and being part of this. Look for an email with a link to a replay of this event soon, and you're welcome to share that replay with your friends and family. Here at Advice Chaser, we're all about helping you find a financial advisor who's a great fit for your life and your financial questions. Our matching service is free to you, and every one of our advisor partners has committed to offer a free initial consultation to anyone we introduce them to. Find out more by going to advicechaser.com and clicking on the link to find an advisor. So once again, from Advice Chaser, thank you so much for coming, and we will see you at another webinar soon. Bye, everyone.